Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be going over an optic that I'm really excited about. Now, Primary Arms didn't send me anything. They might know who I am. They're not going to know my channel, I don't believe, but they might know me as being a pain in the ass. And we'll talk about that later on down the road. But still really excited about this. I think it's a fantastic scope, especially what it is and what it brings to the table at the price point. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's see what comes in the box. So first off, here is the packaging. So you got a sleeve that comes over the box, some really nice graphics that show you a bit of what you're getting with this optic. Slide this off, and then you open it up, and again you got Primary Arms plastered everywhere, so you know that you got a Primary Arms scope. And then inside here you have a foam cover, protective cover with PA that is laser engraved. And then inside is the contents of the scope. Now obviously the optic's not in there at the moment, but there are some things that do come with this. So first, starting over on our left, this is a exposed elevation turret, so that if you are, what I perceive this to be used for is for competition use primarily. So if you want to dial like 3-gunner or whatever cases, you have the ability to dial and have this exposed turret cap. Now I will never use it in all practicality. What I'm using the scope for, that is not ideal, so that'll never leave the box again. However, I think it is a nice touch that they do add for those that may want to use it for that purpose. Over here you have a sunshade. I believe it's a 2-inch sunshade that comes with it. So I haven't found any scenario where I've needed this. However, it is again a nice touch that they offer that in the package. Now inside this, stuffed when you first get it, will be a couple of these little bags. This bag here has some screws, set screws for this turret, or maybe you lose the ones for the other turret, you have some spares here. There is 2 additional Allen keys, one for the scope caps and one for something else. I haven't figured out what the other one is for, and then a spare battery. Now one does come in a scope, but they do send you a spare battery, and it comes all rolled up and tucked in like so. And then when you take the scope out of the package, it'll have bikini scope covers on it. I can't stand bikini scope covers, and for the price of this, I think they would have added something better that was a little more practical. But aside from that, that's not a big ding, and you know, that's personal preference, right? So now that that's done, let's get this out of the way and get to the optic itself. So this is what we got here. The Primary Arms PLx Compact 1-8x24. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now, before I do, this one here is one of 4 that I've had the opportunity to test. Not because Primary Arms sent it to me, you know, for testing or anything like that, but because there were some warranty issues that I had to remedy. And we'll touch on that. I don't think they were that big of a deal. Kind of, but we'll talk about it. So let's go down the spec sheet, right? So this is a first focal plane optic, which means that the reticle will grow as you increase the magnification, and the ranging features will be usable at any one of the magnification settings. So I love first focal plane for that reason alone, and it's why almost every one of my optics are first focal plane. Moving on, it does have a magnification range of 1 to 8. The eye relief is 3.2 inches at 1x and 3.7 inches at 8x. The exit pupil is 8 millimeter at 1x and 3.7 millimeter at 3 millimeter at 8x, which is a little tight, right? But there's always trade-off when you have something like this in a compact configuration, right? Moving on with the Spec Sheet, you have a field of view at 1x at 100 yards is 120 feet, 121 feet, which is massive, and at 8x at 100 yards it's 14.6 feet. It does sport a 24 millimeter objective with a compact 30 millimeter tube, which is really cool, and I like the 30 millimeter tube feature because you have more variety for mounts, and most likely you're probably going to have mounts just lying around in 30 millimeter, so save yourself a little bit of money there. It does have low pro cap turrets, which is perfect for this particular type of optic, the LPVO. So elevation and windage are capped, and they are low profile, so you don't have to worry about them getting caught, snagged, or hitting on anything. They do have, well, this scope has 29.1 mils of total elevation and windage adjustment, which is pretty good. Actually, it's very good for something like this. They do have 0.1 mil click value adjustment, so every click is 0.1 mils. Does have a illuminated reticle. The reticle is illuminated red, and it uses a CR2032 3-volt lithium battery, which is on the left side here. The cap is subdued, so you would need some type of tool or an aid to open it up, which I think for me is a bit of a miss, because in the field or in a situation where you have to change a battery and you may not have access to something to aid you, then you're kind of SOL. However, most people carry something on them that can be used, so I guess it's a trade-off. Plus, with it being a flush fit, you don't have to worry about getting snagged or bumped or anything like that. It does have 10 settings for illumination, which is fantastic, and in between each setting is off. So as you can see here, you'll see it says 10 when it wants to zoom in, or there you go, and then there's off settings in between each one. They're pretty tactile and they're audible. It's not really a big deal for illumination, but it's nice to have that additional feature set with that. It does say that it is night vision compatible. I haven't had the opportunity to test it because I don't care for night vision compatibility with LPVOs. However, it's there if you so choose to use it. Now, as far as the illumination goes, it does sport their auto live motion sensing, which is a shake to wake essentially. So as soon as it senses any type of motion, it'll kick on, and after a certain period of time of no motion, it'll shut itself off to save battery life. Now, I don't know what the battery life is on these, but it's an LPVO, so they're not going to be much, even with the auto live motion sensing technology that they sport. Continuing on, you have the Griffin Mil M8 reticle, which is my favorite reticle, and I think it's one of the best reticles on the market, especially for something for this application. It is an MRAD type reticle, so this will come in meters. The overall length of the optic without scope caps is 9.28 inches, and the weight is 16.95 ounces with the battery and without the scope caps. Alright, build quality. Very, very nice. It's super clean, no machining marks whatsoever, or forging if it is a forged tube. It's got this beautiful matte finish, unlike the SLX, which has more of a sheen to it. And there's no complaints. It feels, even though it's lightweight, it does feel very robust, and it's hard to beat the products that come out of Light Optic Works, which is where this is made, and other big names like Night Force are made, and some of the higher end Vortex are made there, as well as others. The turrets are done phenomenally well. Like you said earlier, they're very low profile, and they are audible and tactile. So for audible, let's see if we can here. Yep, that was elevation. and windage. So very tactile, very audible, very low profile, which I love, and I think this is perfect for something like this. No issues whatsoever in terms of adjustments and repeatability, so all that was pretty good. As far as the rest of the adjustments, you have your magnification ring right here, which starts out at 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. There is quite a bit of tension, almost like hydraulic pressure, it feels like, but it is very, very smooth throughout. And that is a really nice feature because you don't have to worry about bumping it off your setting if you want to leave it on a particular setting. It's going to stay right where it's at. The knurling is done very well. It's like sandpaper, but not overly aggressive. And the same thing goes for the scope caps. For one, they're same thing with that knurling and on the diopter ring. So this diopter is, again, quick focus and very nice. There's zero play whatsoever in this diopter housing, so that is an absolute win right there. And one thing I noticed is that over time, once they sit for a little bit, after about 10 minutes or so, it almost like sets in, so that when you want to make an adjustment, you got to really force it to kind of break it loose of where it's at, and then it'll move smoothly, which I think is a really nice feature because then you don't have to worry about bumping it off of your setting. So that is very nice. Moving on to the illumination. So as far as the illumination goes, we're going to roll in some footage here for you to, provide context and a better visual. But it can be bright, but it's not daylight bright. In some cases, it's barely daylight visible. And I'll roll in footage again here showing you what it looks like. One of the days I had it bright sunny sky with a brand new battery turned up to setting 10, and you can barely see it. Now it will provide some contrast on darker backdrops, which is the most that you can ask for illumination, something like this. However, if you're looking for red dot bright, this isn't the scope for you. Now, there is a slight caveat to that because I believe that training will trump your fixation on red dot brightness. I don't run any of my LPVOs with brightness at all. I use the etch reticles. Guys have been doing it for years. Think about some of the scopes that were available on World War II and Vietnam and all that other stuff, and they made do with it. And you can be very, 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 very fast, and I would argue almost as fast or just as fast as a red dot. Now, some people may argue otherwise, and I think that comes down to the individual. However, with the way this reticle is set up, you don't really need red dot illumination. However, it would be nice to have it, and I think that you're going to see that in the future with the success of the Nova reticle with their fiber wire red dot technology or illumination technology, which I think is really nice, and we'll start seeing that trickle into some of the PLX line down the road. But otherwise, it's not as visible as you would like it to be. But on a forecast day or some overcast or later in the evening, that illumination is going to be extremely helpful, and it's a very clean illumination on the reticle, which is nice. Now, in the dark, if you're inside a building with practically no illumination, there's settings where it's going to be it's definitely going to be way too bright. So past setting 7, it is starting to become a bit too bright. After setting 7, 8, 9, and 10, it is definitely too bright and actually washes out the lens, and you start to get this red glare that comes back onto you. Now, this is where we're going to touch on what I was talking about earlier with the warranty stuff that I had to do and why I had the opportunity to get my hands on 4 of these, to include this one here. From the very first one that I got, there was specs on the lenses. they didn't look like imperfections. They looked like particles of something that were stuck to the lens. Now, I know that these are assembled inside some type of clean room. However, I think there was an issue, and I had talked to Primary Arms about this because I provided them the information, and based on the first 3 that I got, that was within, I believe, 87 numbers of each other. So 87 scopes were made from the one that I first got to the 3rd one, which leads me to believe that there might have been a bit of a batch issue and maybe something going on, which they did say that they would reach out to Light Optic Works and find out what's going on with them. Now, this last one they sent me, they offered to exchange it for something else that I may want outside of the Primary Arms deal or Primary Arms line, and they were really awesome the entire process. But I really fell in love with this optic and its capabilities and what it brought to the table for the money, and I just told them, send me one. Now, this one, I will say, does have 3 visible specs in a dark room, like a very, very dark room, almost no light whatsoever, on setting 10, which at that point, it is not usable at all because you're washing the entire lens out with a red glare. And even doing that, when I tried to take pictures of it with my phone, it wasn't picking up the specs. Now, I'll hopefully you're seeing pictures by now, and I'm rolling in more pictures showing you that. So when I seen that, I said, okay, that's not a big deal. That's just me being really picky at this point. Now, maybe that might be an issue under night vision. I don't know. Again, I don't see there any reason to use a night vision device behind an LPVO because there's so much glass that you have to adjust to get a good sight picture, and it doesn't relay very well to the human eye, at least from my experience. So I don't worry about that when it comes to this. Otherwise, that was the main issue and why it took me this long to get out a review, and I had the ability to test 4 different ones. Now, across the 4 different, they were consistent in terms of their clarity, in terms of their trackability with their optics, or with the turrets, the smoothness with the adjustments from the diopter and the magnification ring, the whole 9 yards. Very, very consistent all the way through. Now, since I touched on the glass, let's get on to that. Glass quality is very, very clear. At 1x, that field of view is massive, and it is apparent behind the optic. Again, very minimal scope body. It just looks like a black ring. I tried to get that on camera, but trying to focus, sometimes it wasn't working out, but I should have 1 or 2 maybe videos that I could roll in now that you'll see that. But very, very good. Again, field of view, very clear sight picture. Glass is very clear, and it seems way brighter through the glass than it does outside, no matter what conditions it was in. It always seemed very nice. So its light gathering capability is very, very good. Again, minimal scope body intrusion. The clarity is maintained from 1x all the way up to 8x. The eye relief is pretty consistent throughout. The exit pupil diameter does get pretty tight past 6, but not unusable. Now, a lot of people think of this as a negative. However, in my thought process and even my use, and I'm going to find out even more when I take this for a class next month, that 8x can be very helpful because you have a fixed parallax, and with it having a tight exit pupil, that forces you to have a pretty perfect cheek weld and side alignment whole 9 yards. So you're taking a lot of that parallax out of the picture, which will allow you to have consistent shots, throughout. And if you're using it for positive identification purposes, then you're probably in a position where you can get yourself pretty stable and zoom in. So I don't see it to be as big of an issue as other people may make it out to be. However, that is to each person, right? During the day, illumination is very good. with no spill or into the lens itself. That was only evident in very dark conditions past setting 7 and beyond. And again, I could see no real imperfections in the lenses or in the glass, just those dust particles in those very specific conditions. And again, in all practicality, during my shooting and stuff, I didn't experience any time where I actually noticed those dots at all, to be honest. But for me, I could be a bit OCD, and that will bug the hell out of me. So let's get this cheat sheet out of the way and move on. So to the Griffin Mil M8 reticle. In my opinion, this is the perfect reticle for an LPVO, and even so for a more DMR or precision optic if it was in a higher range. And the reason being is because of its crosshair design. So at 1x, primarily on this, at 1x, that crosshair allows you to be very fast and draw your eye right to the center. Now, I had no issue transitioning because I had the SLX 1-8, where it was just a floating horseshoe that looked kind of like a dot on 1x, and I got very good at picking that up very, very fast, like a red dot. And that translated really well into this. And if you're transitioning from a red dot to something like this, that's going to help you out big time. Just understand that it's going to take some training and practice to train yourself to not look for that red dot, but to look for that center of a crosshair. Let's see. Now, I had been familiar with something similar to this with the Griffin Mil reticle in the GLX 2.5-10, which is one of my all-time favorite reticles, and then the addition of the crosshair just elevates it to another level, in my opinion. Again, allows for quick sight acquisition on low power in close encounters, and then out to distance, it allows for quick no math ranging. Allows you to spot your misses and make corrections with the grid on the fly, and easy to make wing calls with it. Now, there's 3 different reticle options. You have the Griffin Mil M8, which is in meters. You have the Raptor yards, and then the Raptor meters. Those are the 3. I don't know if they're making any other ones, but those are the 3 as of now, and they're all pretty similar for the most part. You'll see clips of that up on the screen now. And the reticle is pretty unique. So if you don't have any idea about this reticle through the first PLX, or maybe through the Griffin Mil with the 2.5-10, you have the ability to range with the reticle either through bracketing or with the mils. So with this one in particular, they recommend a 50-yard zero, and I had this on a 12.5 with a 50-yard zero, which would get me out to 500 yards using the bracketing. However, traditionally that bracketing is going to get you out to 600 yards. So as you go down, those brackets decrease for the auto ranging feature. That'll get you out to 600 meters, not yards, I apologize. And that's based on a 19-inch, just hit the camera, 19-inch wide shoulder width individual. If you're ranging 2-legged critters, that'll get you can range from 400 to 600 meters. And then you have, I believe it's 300 to 600, if I'm correct. And then you can also range on an approximate 5', 7-inch individual vertically with their ranging stadia from 3 to 600 meters. And that you can do 2 ways. You can do it at full height, or you could do it at half height from the crotch to the top of the head based on the manual. And the mil grid is 1 mil increments in elevation and windage. You have 1 mil increments down the crosshair, with half mil increments in the Christmas tree portion of that vertical crosshair. Outside, the outer portions of the crosshairs have 5 mil increments, with some of them having half mil. depending on the reticle. But it's a very unique and well thought out reticle, and I really do appreciate this reticle. So overall, how's my experience been with this? Aside from the issues with the dots or the specs on the lenses, which again, talking to Primary Arms, they believe this to be a batch issue and something that they are addressing with light optic work. Outside of that, I think the scope is an absolutely fantastic buy. I've personally reached out to a couple YouTubers, as well as had conversations with other people who had purchased this in the comment sections of others' videos, and not one person has been able to confirm that they've had any type of specs on their lenses, you know, in those conditions. So maybe I just have the worst luck in the world when it came to this, just that luck of the draw, or again, it was probably just a batch issue. But aside from that, as of right now, with me running this on my 12.5 and putting a lot of rounds down range with it and having 4 different ones in total to test, I think this is absolutely a fantastic buy. Absolutely a fantastic buy. And I think that if you are looking for something that gives you the ability to be quick and, you know, on low power and use like a red dot rather than having a, you know, a piggyback red dot or an offset red dot, and then being able to give you that ability to range out to distance with precise measurements, and then having a very clean reticle with a clean sight picture, I think this is hard to beat, man. I don't, especially at that $1,500 price point. Now they do sales. If you're a veteran, you get a veteran's discount as well. That brings it down even more, makes it even more intriguing of a buy, in my opinion. But this is fantastic. Again, Primary Arms did not send this to me. They don't know about my channel. At least I don't believe they do. It's a very small channel, so I doubt they would know about it. And I think that again, this is a hard to beat option for an LPVO, especially if you're looking for a 1-8. And I hope they do bring a 1-10 to market with this type of technology incorporated. You know, even I don't know if they'll be able to do it on a 30 mil tube that's compact, but they're constantly pushing the limits of technology, and I can't wait to see what they come out with next. So if you do have this optic, please let me know your thoughts of it down below in the comment section. I'd love to have that interaction with you guys and get some feedback from somebody who has had some hands-on time. If you haven't, but you're very interested, let me know what you think after you've watched other people's videos and mine, and let me know what you think about the optic, if it's something that you still consider to be a high-value item for what you may want it to do. I think this is kind of jack-of-all-trades optic that's pretty damn close to mastering a lot of things. And again, that price point, man, that's hard to beat. That really is hard to beat. So, guys, girls, thank you for watching this video. If you made it all the way through, I know it could be a bit long-winded, but I try to be as precise as I can be with my information. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, whole 9 yards. I am trying to grow this channel. I'd like to test more products, and unfortunately I don't make a lot of money like that. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not even well off like that to be able to constantly be buying stuff. So if I can get companies that are willing to work with me where I can test their products, I don't even care about having it for free. I will send it back. Just give me the opportunity to look at your product, and I can give it a fair assessment and bring it to you guys so that you can make a fair decision on whether you want to proceed with buying that product, or maybe, you know, I bring something to the table that makes you think maybe this is not what I'm looking for this particular application. But I can only do that if I can get more stuff in, and unfortunately, dollars are tight and it is very difficult. So if you can help me grow this channel, I would greatly appreciate it. And guys, have a good one. I will see you in the next video. Thanks.